many fucking powerful people that are on those lists. There's so many powerful people that went and partied. Air quotes, partied. And how many of them went to the Diddy parties? Have you been paying attention to the trial?
I go on my Twitter and I see people saying, you look like you have AIDS. You should go die. I don't understand how I dedicated 22 years of my life to my fans, and now they turn on me.
Do you regret ever getting involved in...
I didn't have a choice. It got bad when I was about 15 years old, because when I did MTV Cribs, the day that I had to go show off that house, my mom and my dad told me, we're getting a divorce, but you still have to go do this. I had to go show off all the stuff my whole life that was going to be taken away from me.
Joe Rogan just brought one of Hollywood's most uncomfortable conversations back into the spotlight, and this time, Aaron Carter's name is sitting right at the center of it. The emerging narrative isn't simply that Aaron was another child star who couldn't handle fame. There are people online who believe he was pulled into elite celebrity circles far too young, exposed to environments connected to powerful figures that nobody dared to question. And now, a growing number of people are asking a deeply troubling question. Was Aaron Carter crying out for help all those years, or was he actually trying to warn the world about what he had witnessed behind those closed doors? For a long time, the public accepted a straightforward explanation for Aaron Carter's downfall: drugs, family dysfunction, emotional breakdowns, social media chaos, addiction. It seemed like a familiar story, a child star who burned out after fame arrived too soon. But people online are now going back and looking at Aaron's life through a very different lens. Because when you listen closely to the things Aaron said in the final years of his life, the fear in his voice starts to sound far more serious than anyone acknowledged at the time, particularly when placed alongside the growing conversation surrounding powerful figures in Hollywood and what young stars were allegedly exposed to behind closed doors. Now, this story takes a dark turn quickly. Aaron Carter was famous before he was old enough to truly understand what fame meant. He was just a kid, smiling on stage, touring the world, selling millions of records, while the adults around him controlled every aspect of his life. And according to people who knew him, the weight of that pressure began crushing him at an early age. Aaron himself admitted things started going wrong around the age of 15. 15 years old, already mentally overwhelmed, already carrying what sounded like trauma far too heavy for any teenager to process. And when people revisit those moments today, the same uncomfortable question keeps coming up. In his own words, Aaron once expressed how devastating it felt to dedicate over 2 decades of his life to his fans, only to feel abandoned and attacked by them online. He spoke about not having a choice in any of it. He recalled that at 15, on the very day he was scheduled to film his MTV Cribs segment, showing off his home and everything he had built, his parents sat him down and told him they were getting a divorce. And he still had to go film it. He still had to walk through that house, showing the world a life that was about to be taken away from him. So the real question people are asking now is, what exactly was happening to Aaron Carter behind the scenes while he was growing up inside those celebrity circles? Because this wasn't simply a young artist struggling with the pressures of fame. Aaron openly and repeatedly talked about fear. He went live on social media multiple times claiming that people were after him, that he needed protection, and that if anything ever happened to him, it would not be a coincidence. At the time, most people dismissed those moments as the words of someone who was unstable. But after his death in 2022, those old live streams began hitting people very differently. Aaron Carter was found dead inside his California home at just 34 years old. His death was officially ruled an accidental drowning involving inhalants and prescription medication. According to public reports, he was discovered unresponsive in his bathtub.
News tonight in Lancaster, where pop star Aaron Carter has died at the age of 34.
Yeah, the troubled performer grew up in the limelight, but he was in and out of rehab several times in his short life. Chris Wolf is live for us in Lancaster. He's got more on this. Chris?
Yeah, Rick, MB, the street is now cleared. People have been moving in and out of that home behind me all day. And tonight we heard from some of those closest to Aaron Carter, and they all say the same thing. They all share stories of a very kind, loving, caring, humble, yet troubled young man. It's the tragic death of a young performer, and now family, friends, and fans around the world are suffering the loss. LA County firefighters say they received a call about a drowning. The LA County Sheriff's Department says a house sitter called 911 around 11 a.m. Saturday to report a man unresponsive in his bathtub. It was Carter. The dispatcher advised her to start CPR until deputies and paramedics arrived. Then emergency personnel pronounced Aaron Carter dead at the scene. He had been grappling with substance abuse for years, in and out of rehab. He once appeared on the show The Doctors, explaining he suffered from a number of mental health issues and was taking a variety of prescription pills to treat those conditions.
He was a good person. You know, he had his demons, as we all do, you know. I just wish he had another chance to defeat those demons, I'll say.
But the internet never fully accepted the official explanation. People remembered too clearly the things Aaron had said before he died. The paranoia in his voice, the visible panic, the desperation when he begged fans for help and money just to relocate somewhere he felt safe. Aaron said outright that people wanted him gone. And once viewers began connecting those statements to broader conversations about celebrity abuse and exploitation in Hollywood, the theories surrounding his life and death exploded across social media. This is where Joe Rogan's commentary started making people genuinely uncomfortable. Rogan has spoken repeatedly about how Hollywood's power structure tends to protect influential figures, while young celebrities quietly fall apart in public view. And as discussions surrounding elite industry gatherings and the exploitation of young stars began resurfacing online, Aaron Carter's story suddenly appeared far darker to many viewers, particularly those who had been following the wider conversation about what children entering the entertainment industry are allegedly exposed to behind closed doors. Because Aaron wasn't the only young star people believe was placed in dangerous environments too soon. Justin Bieber's name entered the conversation almost immediately, and the details are worth pausing on. Bieber was just 13 years old when he was pulled into major industry circles. A young kid fresh out of Canada with enormous online buzz, suddenly surrounded by powerful adults he barely knew. Then footage resurfaced of Diddy publicly boasting about spending 48 hours with Bieber. At the time, most people thought nothing of it, but looking back at those clips today, a significant number of people online say they feel deeply unsettling in a way that's difficult to ignore.
Check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like, you know, where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. You know, I have been given custody of him. You know, he signed to Usher.
Him signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we gonna go full crazy.
Going crazy.
Crazy.
Not mentorship, not guidance, something else entirely. And that unsettling feeling only grew stronger as people looked back at Justin Bieber's most vulnerable public moments. The crying interviews, the visible exhaustion, the isolation, the times he appeared completely emotionally drained in front of the entire world. Then people recalled the moment Bieber got emotional speaking about wanting to protect Billie Eilish from the industry. In his own words, Bieber described how difficult it was being that young inside the entertainment industry, not knowing where to turn, surrounded by people who claimed to love him and then walked away without hesitation. He said he wanted to protect Billie Eilish from going through anything like that he wouldn't wish his experience on anyone, and that if she ever needed him, he was just a phone call away. Protect her from what exactly? That is the question people keep coming back to. And once online conversations began connecting Bieber, Aaron Carter, and other young stars to the same elite celebrity circles, theories about what these young entertainers were allegedly exposed to started spreading rapidly across social media. Now, it is important to be straightforward here. There is no verified evidence placing Aaron Carter at Jeffrey Epstein's property specifically. That needs to be stated clearly. But the broader conversation online centers on the idea that Hollywood music industry parties, private celebrity gatherings, and exclusive social circles involving powerful figures all overlapped in ways that put vulnerable young stars at risk. That is the angle driving these discussions. And the deeper people dig into old interviews and public statements, the more uncomfortable the conversation becomes. Because Usher himself acknowledged years ago that during the period when he was young and living in Diddy's world, he witnessed things he did not fully understand at the time. He even stated plainly that he would never allow his own children anywhere near those same environments. Coming from someone who lived inside that world firsthand, people are finding those words increasingly difficult to set aside.
Becomes for a year.
That's the crazy thing. Now, that was L.A. Reid's idea, right? We're sending you over to something called Puffy Flavor Camp.
There you go.
To learn
Flavor Camp.
Yeah,
Flavor
that's what it was called. And you're going to go to Puff Daddy's. He's going
in the 90s. Do you understand what that's like?
Puffy's place was like just filled with like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I mean, but there, hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
You're a dad now. Would you ever send your kid to Puffy Camp?
Hell no.
Now, consider just how significant that admission is coming from someone who actually lived through it firsthand. Someone who witnessed things he couldn't fully process as a child, who grew up and said he would never expose his own kids to those same environments. That carries real weight. Then, years later, that same usher goes on to help introduce a young Justin Bieber into that very same industry world. And once people began noticing that pattern, the cycle of young stars being brought into powerful circles by the generation before them, they started looking at Aaron Carter's story through a much darker lens as well. Then there is a particular piece of footage that keeps resurfacing in these conversations. A video of Aaron Carter speaking directly to Justin Bieber. On the surface, it appeared to be one young entertainer offering advice to another. But people revisiting that clip today aren't so sure it was just friendly guidance. To some, it looks less like mentorship and more like a warning. One young man who had already been through the machine, trying to quietly tell another what was waiting for him on the other side.
It's unexpected, and don't think that you know exactly how it's going to end up being, because it can change in a split second, and for good or for worse, you know, it all depends. And you got to go through life experiences. I would tell Justin, you know, hey, you're gonna have to go through life. You know, yes, I know what it's like to do headlining tours and sell them out and be working and all over the world and be tired and exhausted and start getting frustrated with the people that you work with. And you know, I know what that's like, but you gotta know what it is that you're doing, and that it's a blessing. Remember where you were before you got to where you are.
Because Aaron Carter spent years publicly opening up about mental health struggles, addiction, loneliness, and confusion about his own identity. He spoke openly about being bisexual, admitted he battled emotional instability for most of his adult life, and confessed that he never truly felt safe or settled within himself. And at one point, he spoke about his greatest fear with a rawness that is hard to forget. In his own words, Aaron described feeling scared. He talked about rumors circulating about him, about people body-shaming him publicly, about dropping to a weight of 115 pounds while refusing to look at himself in the mirror because he couldn't stand what he saw. And when asked what his greatest fear was, he paused, as if the question caught him completely off guard, before answering quietly that his greatest fear was simply not being able to live as long as he could. That was it. Not fame, not money, just life itself. Now, online conversations continue pushing the idea that certain experiences inside celebrity environments during childhood may have caused long-term emotional damage to some young stars, particularly those who were introduced to adult spaces far too early. And when you watch Aaron's later interviews today, it is genuinely difficult not to notice how exhausted he looked. The heaviness in his face, the fear, the instability, the sadness sitting just beneath the surface. This no longer looked like someone who had simply partied too hard. It looked like someone quietly collapsing under a weight the public never fully understood. According to 50 Cent, there are still powerful names inside the entertainment industry that people remain too afraid to expose publicly. That is why 50 Cent kept speaking out about Diddy for years, while most other celebrities stayed completely silent. People online believe it is fear, not loyalty, that keeps these circles protected. And here's where the story becomes even heavier. As lawsuits, allegations, and investigations surrounding Diddy began growing more public, people started revisiting older celebrity breakdowns with an entirely different perspective. Voices within the industry began raising pointed questions about who received the benefit of the doubt, about whether entire cultures were being judged alongside individuals, and about the silence that allowed certain behaviors to go unchallenged for so long. Aaron Carter, Justin Bieber, Britney Spears, child stars from multiple generations, and suddenly people began noticing the same pattern repeating itself over and over again. A young celebrity rises fast, gets surrounded by powerful adults, begins showing signs of emotional instability years later, then spirals publicly while the world laughs and points, instead of stopping to ask what actually happened behind the scenes. Aaron's interviews from the final years of his life feel particularly chilling now. He sounded like someone desperately trying to articulate a pain he could not fully put into words. He talked about fans turning on him online, people mocking his appearance, strangers telling him he looked sick, telling him to simply disappear. And the entire time he looked like someone quietly drowning in plain sight, in front of millions of people who weren't paying close enough attention. And then there was his family trauma layered on top of everything else. Aaron admitted publicly that even during significant career milestones as a teenager, his personal life was silently falling apart around him. He described the experience of filming MTV Cribs, walking through his home, showing the world everything he had, while knowing his parents were divorcing, and that the life he was displaying on camera was about to be gone.
I see people saying, you look like you have AIDS. You should go die. I don't understand how I dedicated 22 years of my life to my fans, and now they turn on me.
Do you regret ever getting involved in...
I didn't have a choice. It got bad when I was about 15 years old, because when I did MTV Cribs, the day that I had to go show off that house, my mom and my dad told me, we're getting a divorce, but you still have to go do this. I had to go show off all the stuff my whole life that was going to be taken away from me.
Imagine being forced to smile for cameras while your entire world is privately falling apart. That kind of sustained pressure does not break people all at once. It destroys them slowly from the inside out. And according to Joe Rogan's broader commentary on fame and celebrity culture, child stars are often turned into products before they ever get the chance to become fully formed adults emotionally. They lose normal childhood experiences. They lose healthy boundaries. They lose the ability to trust. And sometimes, they lose themselves entirely, worn down by an industry that was built around image and profit, not people. Now place all of that alongside the conversation surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, private islands, exclusive gatherings, young people placed in close proximity to extraordinarily powerful adults, secretive environments where normal rules allegedly cease to exist. That is why people online keep drawing emotional connections between these stories, even in the absence of direct verified proof, because the patterns themselves are deeply disturbing on their own. And once detailed allegations surrounding Diddy's private gatherings began surfacing publicly, online commentators immediately began drawing comparisons to the culture surrounding Epstein's social circles as well, not necessarily arguing that the two were identical, but suggesting that the same underlying culture, secrecy, influence, unchecked power, and enforced silence may run through elite celebrity spaces more broadly. That conversation gained additional momentum from voices speaking out publicly. Figures like Jaguar Wright were particularly direct, stating plainly that Aaron Carter had been warning people for years, reaching out for help repeatedly, and that nobody took him seriously until it was far too late.
Begged for help in front of the world. He begged for financial support to help get him a private security team to keep him alive. He said on numerous occasions, if anything happens to me, I promise you, I am not suicidal. And no one said anything.
Silence breaker for my brother, who is a artist, and they're after my life. My whole family is after my life, and they're setting me up. And Sony Records owes me $3.5 million, and they don't want to pay me, and it would be in their better interest, just like Michael told me. They owe me money, and they're trying to off. And I'm begging you and I'm pleading you, help me raise $100,000 as soon as I can so I can move to an undisclosed location where I am safe. They had cops come and check for a rope in my garage saying I wanted to hang myself.
Woman of my word, I'm a choreographer and I love kids even though I can't have kids. So if you have met me in this time, I thank you for spending the time that you have with me. Because now that you see all this stuff on Twitter and now that you see all this stuff on social media, you've met the real me. You've spent time with the real me. You know that I would do anything to keep a child safe. You know that I would do anything to have some peace.
And that is the deeper fear driving all of these conversations. Not just one person's story, an entire system that may have been operating in the shadows for far longer than anyone wants to admit. Here is the part that haunts people most about Aaron Carter. Toward the end of his life, Aaron did not sound like someone fighting the pressures of fame anymore. He sounded terrified. Terrified of the people around him. Terrified of what he had experienced. Terrified that nobody would believe him until it was already too late. And once he died, the internet immediately began replaying every live stream, every interview, every emotional breakdown, searching for meaning that had been missed the first time around. Because suddenly those clips no longer looked like random celebrity chaos. They looked like warning signs that everyone had scrolled past. Maybe Aaron Carter truly was battling addiction and emotional illness largely on his own. Maybe the relentless pressure of fame simply dismantled his mental health over time. Or maybe the darker conversations circulating online are pointing towards something people still do not fully understand about what happens to young stars behind closed doors in Hollywood. That uncertainty is precisely why this conversation refuses to go away. And the online community has made clear that it is not letting this go quietly. One person wrote that what was done to Aaron destroyed him completely, calling it absolutely heartbreaking. Another pointed out that Aaron had allegedly been pursuing legal action against a major record label over money he was owed, drawing a direct parallel to Michael Jackson's well-documented conflict with Sony before dying suddenly. Another simply wrote that they believed Aaron Carter and that his death bothers them deeply. Because when people look back at Aaron Carter now, they no longer see just a troubled celebrity. They see a child star who may have been exposed to things no young person should ever have to experience. And the more people draw connections between Aaron's story and the broader conversations surrounding the exploitation of young stars in Hollywood, the harder it becomes to dismiss all of these accounts as entirely unrelated. Once enough young stars begin breaking down publicly in strikingly similar ways, people naturally start asking bigger questions. Questions that powerful people in Hollywood would probably prefer never got asked at all. So now the conversation turns to you. Do you believe Aaron Carter was genuinely trying to warn people before his death? Or do you think his struggle stemmed purely from fame, addiction, and mental health battles that went untreated for too long? Why do so many child stars eventually sound emotionally shattered after years inside the entertainment industry? And when you look at the stories surrounding Aaron Carter, Justin Bieber, and the wider allegations about Hollywood's treatment of young talent, do you think people are identifying real patterns, or do you think the theories are going too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments and keep the conversation going. If this story made you think, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more stories that go beyond the surface.